Well, I don't think I need to tell people in Marion County that Florida is growing. We're the #1 fastest growing state in the United States. And Florida has actually, even though we've all seen a lot of growth over the years, Florida has actually not been the fastest growing state in the country since 1957. And part of that is the bigger you are, it's harder to grow faster. And it's not something that we're like begging people to come. It's just the reality of you have a lot of areas in this country that are misgoverned. I think you see a lot of crime, you see bad tax policy, bad spend policy, bad COVID policy, all these things, bad education policy has helped to, I think, propel people to seek greener pastures, and we are the #1 landing spot for folks. We are the #1 state for net in-migration, and we have that. I think we've been that every year since I've been governor. You look about our rankings. Of course, we don't have an income tax. We're #2 for lowest state per capita taxes. Our debt per capita is second lowest in the country. We have a record budget surplus. We're ranked #1 for new business formations, #1 for education freedom, #1 for parental involvement in education, and our public higher education system is ranked #1 in the country by U.S. News and World Report. So we've got a lot going for us. Our tourism has been very, very strong. You know, there was a time, 2020, 2021, where if you wanted to visit any place, Florida was like the one place you could visit and be normal. And so we had so many people flooding to come down here, and it was a big deal when COVID first started because we didn't know what that was going to mean for our economy, and there was a lot of trepidation. But I think because, you know, we went in a different direction than many other states, the contrast was so stark, and people just felt like if they could get here. And I had people write me letters thanking me, and I'm like, what do you thank me for? It's like, we left Illinois for 2 weeks and were able to bring our family and be normal, and that everyone was going crazy with this and that, and we were normal, and it was good. So that we served that purpose and that function, but we were able to do great in tourism. Last year, 2022, 137 million visitors to Florida. That is a record, and that's even with still some of these idiotic restrictions for foreign travel that the federal government is doing. So we've been able to see that our unemployment rate is a full percentage point below the national average. And if you look at what happened, particularly with COVID, when they were paying people not to work, all these things, some of these people just dropped out of the labor force. A lot of states haven't even recovered their pre-COVID employment numbers. We have way more people employed in Florida today than we did pre-COVID. Our labor force is actually growing, and there's a lot of opportunities here, which we're very, very proud of. Now, we also know that when you have Congress doing trillions and trillions of dollars of borrowing and the Fed printing trillions and trillions of dollars over the last few years, of course that was going to lead to inflation. Our Federal Reserve didn't think so. They thought that it would be transitory. But it's absolutely incredible what they've done to fuel this inflation. You remember the financial crisis in 2008. They did QE. That was like a big deal, pumped a lot of money into the economy, and that was very controversial. And then they did the bank bailout, the TARP, which was $700 billion. That was very controversial. Well, now, if you compare the money that the Fed printed for 2008 financial crisis to what they printed starting March of 2020, they've done way, way more in the last 3 years. And so this is something that when you start doing that, you fast forward a year and a half, or of course, that's just textbook that you're going to get inflation. And so for them to think that somehow that would not happen, you know, was a really, really big error. And so then what they've done, they saw inflation high. They've been hiking rates very rapidly. That's causing problems with banks. It's causing problems with others. Although the banks, if you're politically connected, what did they do with Silicon Valley? They bailed the bank out. They pumped hundreds of billions of dollars more of printed money back in to try to deal with that. And this is something, this bailout, that never even passed Congress. They're just doing it unilaterally. I can tell you, if there was a bank here in Ocala that was having problems, do you think that you would have been bailed out if you had money in there that was not insured? Of course not. That would have failed. So they're really protecting, I think, the people that are politically connected, but the rest are still dealing with the inflation, still dealing with a lot of uncertainty. Oil's $82 a barrel. A lot of people think that's going to really shoot up over the next year. OPEC just cut production. There's a big reduction in production. You'd think that we would want to be producing more of our own stuff here. That would be very sensible, not with the guy in the White House. He doesn't think that that's sensible, but if we used our own resources, we'd be totally independent of all OPEC and all this other stuff, and it would do more than probably any single thing to help cool the jets on inflation. So I think we should be energy independent, and I think we should use our resources. So we're mindful of a lot of the stuff that's happening nationally that is causing problems. So what we're doing in Florida, and we were actually, I think we were in town, or we were definitely in Central Florida when we announced our big tax package. So the taxes we're going to do, and look, we don't have an income tax, which is great, but it just means, you can't cut income tax rates, and so you got to figure out other ways. And so we're doing big reductions for people. Families, no sales tax on anything involving raising babies. So diapers, wipes, clothing, cribs, strollers, you name it. All that is going to be permanently tax-free in the state of Florida. We did the... We're doing a tax holiday, no sales tax for a year on all pet food. That's going to save Floridians a lot of money. No sales tax permanently on over-the-counter pet medications, which is going to be really, really good. Do a one-year sales tax holiday on all household items under $25, and so just things you need on a daily basis. That'll be tax-free. So we're working, and I think the legislature is even going to put more in there than I had proposed, partially because they increased the estimate for the amount of surplus that we have compared to my budget that we did many months ago, which just shows you there's a lot of strength going on in Florida. So we're doing that. We're very mindful of that, and I think it's going to give people, and we did the toll relief for people. And, the tolls are different in different parts of Florida. Some places you can't move without hitting a toll in some of these local communities. And so what we did, if you have that Sun Pass or those passes, they keep track of when you're going, and once you hit a certain number in a month where we know you're a commuter, they refund you 50% of your tolls each month. So people are saving a lot of money on that, and I think it's going to end up saving some families more than $1,000 during the 2023 calendar year. So that's very meaningful, and so we're constantly looking for ways to be able to help folks navigate the Biden inflation, navigate whatever fallout there could be. I talk to people about, are we going to have a recession? A lot of people say it's here, because they're seeing a lot of problems on the horizon already. So, look, I think Florida's much better positioned than some of these other states. And remember, when the housing bust happened in 2008, Florida was one of the worst performing states. I mean, we got totally killed. And that's because a lot of our economy, the eggs were in that basket. Well, now, we've seen a lot of great growth of our economic base. And so we're in a much better situation, I think. But nevertheless, we're mindful of those potential horizons. Our debt in Florida, our economy's over $1 trillion. Our debt is $20 billion. Now, compare that to the federal. The U.S. economy, what is it, like 24, 25 trillion? But the debt is 31 trillion. So the debt is higher by a lot than our entire American economy. In Florida, that $20 billion debt compared to a $1 trillion economy, that is a small fraction, very, very small fraction. Nevertheless, even though we're in good shape there, we're actually going to take some of our surplus, and we're working with the legislature on this to do some accelerated debt repayment. So we're actually going to be paying it down even quicker, and that's, what you should be doing. So we're here today because we're always looking for ways to make an impact in terms of economic growth. I have a program that is the legislature appropriates money, and the governor and kind of our administration are able to identify worthy projects to get grants, and it's called the Job Growth Grant Fund. It can be used for infrastructure projects, but it could also be used for workforce projects. So we've put a lot of that money into expanding opportunities for commercial driver's license. You know, when I became governor, we produced about 600 truck drivers a year. Now we have the capacity to do 3,500 truck drivers a year. So that's a huge thing. When you talk about supply chain, you should also just having, it's a tough job driving the big rigs, but the pay has gone up a lot with that because they're in high demand. So you're starting out in a lot of these places, like Walmart, I think is starting at $110,000 for qualified truck drivers. So we're doing that, and we've pumped a lot of grants into very strategic things that are really going to make an impact for the state of Florida. We've also done key infrastructure. We've done things to help expand the, and we were in the area near the villages. We're doing things to help with like industrial parks so that there's connectivity with the road or underlying infrastructure. And we've done that all across the state. You know, I'm proud of our tourism. It's great. It's a great state, and we work hard to have a beautiful environment here. We'll continue to do that. I'm proud of other things, you know, that we do like agriculture or whatnot, but you know, I want to build more things in Florida, and we have expanded. We've added, I think, about 80,000 manufacturing jobs in the last 4 years. But when you have those industrial assets, we have a very good tax climate, very good regulatory climate. People are going to want to do that, and when you're committed to workforce. So we've been doing all of that, and it's really, really exciting. We're going to keep doing that because we know it's important. So here we're getting to the end of my money for this current fiscal year. So we have a lot of people that apply, different communities that apply, and we got an application from here that we were working with that said, you know what, we need a grant to be able to build a new interchange off I-75 at Northwest 49th Street in Ocala. And the reason for that, I think, is a couple of things. One, it will actually help with traffic at the 326 and 40 interchanges, which we know there's a lot of traffic here on 75. We announced a program a couple months ago called Move America Forward, where we're trying to inject $4 billion in general revenue that we could parlay into $7 billion total to accelerate projects, including some of the stuff on 75 here. That will allow some of that stuff to be done 10, 12 years ahead of schedule. And so if you can get some of this done in 7 years versus 20 years, that's going to make a big difference. So there's a broader infrastructure play, but this particular thing to help with some traffic, also support opportunities to expand manufacturing at the Ocala Marion County Commerce Park, would also support visitors at the nearby World Equestrian Center, which has been a huge hit. I mean, people rave about it. You got people from all over the country that come down for that. So, you know, you have that right off, be able to get off 75 there. And then, of course, reason why we have this paraphernalia, when this interchange is completed, it will be completed at the same time we have an opening of the third Bucky's in the state of Florida, and that's going to be really, really exciting. So they started in Florida in 2021. I was with Beaver for the big one that we did in Daytona Beach to open that up, and I tell you, I mean, it's been a huge, huge hit. If you've never been in one of these Bucky's, I mean, you know, you see all the stuff. They make so much stuff. They have those beaver nuggets. They have all kind of barbecue they make. They have any type of, like my kids like, because they've got the Dippin' Dots. They've got all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's basically like the Shangri-La of service stations when you go into a Bucky's. And this one's going to be massive. It's going to be 80,000 square foot store, travel center. It's going to have 120 fuel pumps and more than 720 parking spaces for people that are in the neighborhood. And I think if you've ever been on 95 in Florida and done, or if you've been in some of the ones, they got one on I-10 in Alabama as you're coming into Florida. Texas ones are very, very popular. But it's like, I mean, people buzz. There's a buzz about it. Everyone gets really excited. And so I'm excited to see that this will be here. First one that we've had on I-75 in the state of Florida. And I don't know that Beaver can say this, but this is going to be bigger than I think the other two in Florida, and it may be as big as any Bucky's they've ever done. So this is a great project. And the thing is, I mean, these are jobs here for that. Obviously, we as consumers and travelers think about being able to have access, which is good. But I can tell you, they do a good job as a company and giving people opportunities. And so I'm excited about that. So our grant today will be from the Florida Department of Transportation to build that I-75 interchange, and that's going to be good for this area, and I think it's going to be good for the state of Florida. And we will hopefully, I don't know, like I told Jared Perdue, we had the hurricane and we had different things, the bridges, all this stuff. So we took over the bridge rebuild because we wanted to help. And they ended up reconstructing the Pine Island Bridge, what people thought was going to be out 6 months in 3 days. So what I said is on this, I was like, I don't know what the normal schedule is, but I think the sooner that people are able to go to Bucky's, the better. So why don't we try to step on the gas? So stay tuned on that. So we're glad that we're able to get this done. We're glad we'll be able to do this. This is a great strategic use of the Job Growth Grant Fund. But we are very, very encouraged about all the great reviews that we're getting out of this part of the state. And we know there's just been so much going on, and people are noticing all across the country. I'll tell you what.